The heavens had opened before dawn, and the city was drenched in relentless downpour. Fat raindrops dropped against drop tops, forming rivers along the narrow street. Umbrellas wrestled against the wind. Yet, despite the storm, people hurried through the rain as if they were drawn by an unseen force. Men in freshly ironed agbada held their flowing robes above the puddles. Women in bright head wraps clutched their children close, rushing to shelter their hair and clothes from the storm. Cars honked impatiently as they squeezed into the overflowing church parking lots, their headlights sliding through the mist. By the time the service was about to begin, Living Fire Assembly was already packed. Damp coats and dripping umbrellas clustered the entrance. The scent of rain mixed with perfume and the faint smoke of wet dust. The congregation buzzed with whisper, anticipation, and thrill of being in the presence of someone extraordinary. For today was not just another Sunday. No, something in the air felt heavy. Different, like the storm itself was announcing the secret long hidden were about to surface. And then all eyes turned to the altar, waiting for Mama Revelation to appear. Long before the world called her Mama Revelation, she was simply Mariam, the bright-eyed daughter of quiet farming family in a dusty little village. Her childhood was steeped in prayers, hymns, and rhythm of community life. Every morning before the sun rose, her mother would gather her and her siblings around the small wooden table, where the smell of burning kerosene lamp mingled with the sound of her father's deep voice reading scripture aloud. Miriam was different from other children. While they ran barefoot through the fields chasing goats, she lingered under the mango tree, humming hymns she had learned in Sunday service. She was curious, eager to understand mysteries others ignored. By the time she was a teenager, she was already leading the children's choir, her voice rising like a silver bell above the rest, sending chills through the small mud brick church. The villagers adored her. They said she had the glow of a chosen one. Old women would pat her on the shoulder and whisper, "This one is marked for greatness." She organized fasting sessions for the youth, went from compound to compound encouraging people to pray, and even gathered the little children to teach them verses from her one Bible. Her parents beamed with pride. To them, Miriam was not only their first daughter, but the spiritual light of their household. They believed she was destined to become a true servant of God, perhaps even a prophetess who would bring revival to the land. But destiny is a tricky thing. Sometimes the very hunger for greatness that draws one closer to the light can also lure one towards the shadows. Miriam started her ministry in the village. After struggling for years to grow her ministry, Miriam attended a grand pastors' conference. There, she encountered powerful preachers who hinted at the secret force behind their success. The leader, Apostle Bernard, pulled her aside. "You are sincere," he said, "but sincerity will never bring influence. If you want true power, you must sacrifice." He spoke of strange ritual that demanded something precious. At first, Miriam hesitated, but ambition clouded her judgment. She wanted recognition. That night, she gave up her ability to bathe children in the chilling ceremony. When the chant ended, she felt a dark force clog on her. When Miriam returned from that fateful conference, she was not the same woman. Something invisible clung to her, a strange aura that made people look twice when she entered a room. Her neighbors couldn't explain it, but they whispered among themselves, "There's something different about her." At first, her growth was natural. A few families came to her gathering, sitting on rickety benches under a leaking roof. She prayed fervently and people felt goose pimples when she lifted her hands. Soon, the sick claimed to feel better. Barren women testified of pregnancies, and jobless men swore they received miracles breakthrough after her prayers. Word spread like wildfire. From 10 members came 50, and 50 came 100. Within months, her humble fellowship could no longer contain the crowd. She rented a large hall in the city and named it Living Fire Assembly. Then came the rebranding. The villagers who once called her Sister Mariam were silenced when she announced a new title, Prophetess Mariam, Mama Revelation. She wore flowing white gowns with glittering scarves, her movement rehearsed, just memorizing. Every setup, the pulpit was like a queen ascending her throne. With every service, her power seemed to swell. She would point at strangers in the crowd and call out details in our lives, names of relatives, hidden fears, even private conversations from the night before. The people gasped, wept, and screamed her name, Mama Revelation. Soon, politicians and wealthy businessmen joined the ordinary villagers in her services. Convoys of sleek black SUVs parked outside her church. Celebrities whispered about her powers. Newspaper ran headlines. The woman who sees it all. Her influence grew beyond the city, spilling across the borders into neighboring countries. She began hosting crusades in stadiums, drawing tens of thousands who filled the air with desperate prayers. Whenever she went, markets shut down, streets clogged with traffic, and hotels overflowed with pilgrims who had traveled just to touch her hand. And with the fame came wealth, offerings poured in like rivers, cash, jewelry, livestock, even land documents. She built herself a mansion on the edge of town, its golden gate towering over the poor homes around it. Inside, marble floors shone like mirrors, an imported calendar swung from high ceiling. She no longer walked barefoot in the village dust. Her foot now touched Italian tiles and Persian rugs. But beneath the applause, beneath the miracles, beneath the holy songs, something darker stayed. Nobody knew that every night, when the cameras were off and the crowd asleep, Mama Revelation disappeared from her mansion. She would glance silently to the river behind her estate, her flowing gowns replaced by creatures shimmering scales. There she shed her human skin and returned to the kingdom where her true alliance lay, the marine rim, where the sea queen awaited her with new assignments, new powers, and new demands. By the day, she was radiant prophetess, beloved, feared, untouchable. By night, she was something else entirely. As Mama Revelation's fame grew, so did her need to keep her followers tightly bound to her. It was not enough for them to admire her. She wanted them dependent, unquestioning, willing to give everything. And so, little by little, she introduced tools that looked holy on the surface but carried a far darker purpose beneath. The first was the mirror of destiny. One bright Sunday, she stood before the overflowing congregation holding a gleaming round mirror framed in gold. Her voice was soft but commanding as she declared, "This mirror is not ordinary. It is a gift from the Lord. Whoever gazes into it each morning will see the wounds of their spirit and the areas where God desires to heal them." The people erupted in awe. Within weeks, every member was instructed to buy one. They clutched those mirrors like sacred relics, convinced they were windows to heaven. But in reality, each mirror had been dedicated in the midnight waters of the marine kingdom. Through them, Mama Revelation could spy into their private lives. She saw their secrets, their weakness, their deepest fears, and she used this knowledge to stage a revelation. Next came the holy oil, the miracle water. Small bottles with plain labels were sold at outrageous prices, each anointed by Mama's touch. She told them it could cure sickness, restore marriages, and open doors of prosperity. Mothers starved themselves just to buy a bottle for their children. For men sold belongings to afford the blessings. But behind closed doors, our aides laughed. The so called miracle water was nothing more than tap water mixed with salt and sugar. Yet, when the people tasted the faint difference, they believed heaven had touched it. And when their problems lingered, Mama Revelation had her answer ready. You must sow a deeper seed. God is testing your faith. She didn't stop there. During all night service, she introduced the scroll of prophecy, small sheet of paper on which each member was told to write their dreams, struggles, and prayer requests. They were instructed to drop these scrolls into a basket at the altar, believing Mama would intercede on their behalf, but instead, Mama's aide collected them and carried them to her chambers. There, she studied them like a general studying for battle, memorizing the details of her members' lives. So when she called a woman out during service and said, "Last night you quarreled with your husband over money," the congregation gazed in awe. How could she know? They never imagined she had already read it in their own handwriting that night before. Perhaps the most sinister of her tools was the live battery prophecy. Standing tall at the pulpit, she would scan the crowd, her eyes narrowing as if she saw into another dimension. Then she would call someone out, "My son, my daughter, your life battery is running low. If nothing is done, you will not live to see your destiny." The chosen victim would tremble in fear. Then Mama Revelation, with a dramatic wave of her hand, would offer the solution, a costly sacrifice converted into money to be handed over immediately. The people gave cows, goats, land, cash, anything to renew their life. They never questioned why their life battery seemed to keep draining again and again. One Sunday, Mama Revelation fixed her gaze on a young graduate named Jonah, who had just returned from abroad with his mother. "My son," she declared dramatically, "your life battery is almost drained. If nothing is done, you will not live to see marriage, or children." The crowd gazed. Jonah trembled, his mother wept, but Mama Revelation quickly offered a solution. "The Lord has revealed you must sacrifice a pure, spotless cow, but do not worry. You can convert it into a financial seed, and I will handle the rest." Terrified, Jonah wrote her a massive check. Mama Revelation smiled triumphantly, but instead of purchasing a cow, she added the money to her lavish mansion project. Naomi had always been different from the other members of Living Fire Assembly. She wasn't dazzled by Mama Revelation's flowing gown or her thunderous voice. She admired her at first, yes, but deep inside, Naomi carried a quiet skepticism. She noticed details others overlooked. The way Mama's revelation always aligned with what people had written on their scrolls, the way her ears moved nervously whenever questions grew too direct, and how the so-called miracle water smelled faintly of salt. It began innocently enough. One late evening, after a long church program, Nomi had stayed behind to help clean the hall. The others had gone, but as she swept near the altar, her eyes caught a glimpse of something unusual, a small notebook half hidden beneath the pulpit. Curiosity tugged at her, and she opened it. What she saw made her blood run cold. Inside were notes, pages filled with names of members, their personal struggles, financial situations, and even private confessions they thought they had shared only with God. Naomi recognized handwriting. These were taken straight from scrolls of prophecy. The revelation Mama had thundered from the pulpit were written word for word in that notebook. Her heart pounded. She stuffed the book back quickly, but from the moment suspicion became certainty, Mama Revelation's power was not what it seemed. Over the weeks, Naomi began to investigate quietly. She pretended to be just another loyal follower, but behind the mask, she was watching. She noticed how Mama's aides whispered before services, handing her slips of paper. She saw how Mama avoided drinking from the same miracle water she gave others. And one night, she trailed two of Mama's trusted assistants who carried sacks towards the river behind the mansion. Hidden behind a thicket of bush, Naomi watched them lay strange offering by the water, white clothes, palm oil, and the blood of a freshly slaughtered goat. They chanted words she didn't understand, their voices trembling as though summoning something unseen. Then, to her horror, the river stirred violently. Though no wind was blowing, a shadowy figure rose from the depths, towering and feminine clothed in scales, and shimmered under the moonlight. Nomi's breath caught. It was the sea queen. The airs bowed low, offering the sacrifice from the depths. The figure stretched out a clown like hand and collected the items. The water hissed. blood, then grew still again. Nomi could hardly move. Every rumor she had heard about Mama Revelation's marine connection was true. The miracles, the prophecies, the power, it was all bought with alliance to the underworld. Her discovery did not end there. Days later, Nomi snuck into Mama's chamber while the prophetess was away on a prayer retreat. Beneath her bed, wrapped in red silk, she found a box filled with charms, cowrie shells, small carved idols, and black candles half burned. At the bottom lay a mirror, but unlike the decorative ones sold to the congregation, this one pulsed faintly with blush glow. When Naomi dared to look into it, her reflection waved. Behind her stood the same shadowy figure from the mirror, smiling wickedly. She slammed each shut, shaking. From that night on, Naomi's eyes were open. She knew she could no longer sit silently in pews while the people were chained by lies. But she but she also understood the danger. To expose Mama Revelation was to walk into the lion's den. The woman was powerful, adored and feared, and anyone who dared to question her authority often vanished from the assembly without explanation. On one particular night, Naomi could not sleep. Her heart thumped like a drum as she sat in a small room with only a candle burning low. Every discovery she had made replayed in her mind: the false prophecy, the sacrifices at the river, the glowing mirror. The pieces had formed a terrifying puzzle, and she knew the midnight hour would decide whether she would live in silence or step into danger. As the clock struck 12, Naomi slipped out quietly, a shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulder. She moved like a shadow, careful not to wake her neighbors. Her destination was the hill behind the church, a place she had often seen Mama Ed sneak to at night. The path was rough, littered with stone, but Naomi's resolve was sharper than her fear. From the distance, she heard the faint hum of voices. She crouched behind a cluster of rocks, peering into the clearing. There they were, Mama Revelation and her inner circle, dressed in flowing white garments that shimmered under the moonlight. In the center of the gathering, a fire blazed. It flamed strangely blue, licking the air like tongues of restless spirit. Naomi's breath caught as Mama Revelation stepped forward, her face painted with chalk-like marks, her hands raised high. She began to chant, not in holy language of prayer, but in guttural tones Naomi had never heard before. The ground itself seemed terrible. The congregation would have fainted in awe if they had seen her revered leader now. From the shadow of the fire, the river spirit rose again, the sea queen. This time, Naomi saw her clearly, her eyes glowing like burning coals, her flowing, her flowing like black serpents, and a smell that split her face in ways that made Naomi blood freeze. Mama Revelation bowed low, her voice shaking. Great Mother of the Deep, I have brought your offering, strengthen my name, expand my kingdom, silence my enemy. The aides came forward, placing the bowls filled with blood, coins, and personal belongings of church members into the fire. The flames rolled higher, sparks spiraling into the night sky. The sea queen's voice echoed, though her lips never moved. As long as you serve me, your power will grow. But betray me, and your fall shall be without remedy. Naomi clung her chest. The truth was undeniable. The midnight sacrifices, the false miracle, the wealth of the assembly, it was all from unholy covenants. From that moment, there was no going back. Naomi was no longer just a member of the congregation. She had become a witness, and a witness in the presence of darkness, and was either a threat to be silenced, a vessel chosen to carry light. But then something happened that Naomi did not expect. As the sea queen turned back towards the river, her fairy eyes swept over the clearing and stopped. She looked clearly towards Naomi's hiding place. A cold wave of fear washed over her as the entity's voice thundered, "Watch her!" Naomi stumbled backward, her cover flown. The aides turned, startled, their chants breaking. Mama Revelation's eyes widened, fury burning in them like a storm. "Who is there?" She rolled her voice, carrying both human anger and something far more sinister. Naomi's heart pounded. She ran, feet scraping the raw ground, the night air slicing against her face. Behind her, shouts erupted as men gave gaze. She didn't know if she could outrun them, but she knew one thing. The midnight truth had been revealed to her eyes, and nothing could erase what she had seen. From that moment, there was no going back. The morning after the terrifying midnight encounter, Nomi's world had changed. She walked among the members of the church, but her heart carried a heavy secret. Every face she saw, the widows who sacrificed their last coin, the sick who drank bottles of salt water, the youths who chanted Mama, Mama in blind devotion, burned her conscience. They deserved to know the truth. Yet, fear takes her steps. How could she, just one woman, stand against Mama Revelation, the prophetess who commanded thousands, who whispered secrets no one else knew, who claimed to hold heaven in her hands, to speak against her as to invite death, disgrace, or worse? Still, the memory of the blue fire, the sea queen's glowing eyes, would not leave Nomi. She would not stay silent. The truth was a fire in her bone. The confrontation came unexpectedly. It was a packed Sunday service, the biggest of the months. Drums thundered, choir sang. The worshippers filled the hall until the walls seemed to groan under their weight. Okay. Mama Revelation entered in a flowing gown, her golden crown glittering as the crowd erupted. Mama, Mama, Mama. She raised her hands and her noise fell silent like waves retreating before a storm. With her commanding voice, she began, My children, today heaven has a message. There are enemies among us, enemies who seek to destroy the work of God. But their plans shall scatter by fire. The congregation shouted, Amen, with fervor. Naomi, seated near the back, felt a stomach twist. Mama Revelation scanned the crowd, sharp as dagger, until they stopped on her. Naomi's hands trembled, but something stronger than fear rose within her. She stood, her voice, though shaky at first, cut through the heavy silence. No, Mama, the enemy is not out there. The enemy is here at the altar. Gates erupted. Haste turned. The choir froze mid-note. Mama Revelation's face hardened, but Nomi pressed on, her voice growing clearer with every word. Last night, I saw it with my own eyes. The midnight fire, the sacrifices, the chants to the river, the mirror you called holy, the water you called blessed are all lies. You are no prophetess of God. You are a servant of the deep. Chords exploded in the hall. Some screamed in disbelief. Others clutched their children tighter. The ushers rushed forward, but Nomi lifted her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. Members of Living Fire Assembly, open your eyes. The revelation you believe came from heaven and stolen from your own writing and confessions. The miracles you believe are tricks. The live battery she claims to charge are nothing but chains to empty your pockets and feed her altar of blood. Mama Revelation's voice cracked like thunder. Silence that witch. She dares challenge the anointed of God. The ushers grabbed Nomi. Demons rippled through the congregation. Faces that once glowed with blind faith now showed doubt. A woman whispered, But I did write my quarrel on that scroll. Another muttered, The water, it never healed me. Naomi shouted above the uproar, You know I speak the truth. Think, has a prophecy ever brought life or only fear? Has she ever lifted your burdens or has she made them heavier? God's power sets free. Mama Revelation binds you tighter. For the first time, the congregation hesitated. The spell of fear and awe was breaking. Mama Revelation's eye blazed with fury. Her voice shook as she lifted her hands to call down curses. But the very moment she opened her mouth, the light in the hall flickered violently. A sharp wind swept through the building, scattering papers and extinguishing candles. The people screamed. Some fell to their knees. Others rushed for the doors. And in that strange darkness, Naomi's voice rang out clear. If God be God, let him expose the truth tonight. When the lights returned, Mama Revelation stood trembling. Her crown had fallen to the floor. Sweat poured down her face. Her once commanding voice reduced to a hoarse whisper. In the stern silence, the people looked at her differently, not as their savior, but as a deceiver unmatched. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye.